Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. More, hate less, read comics. It's Blake's Buzz Live.
Buzz, buzz, babies.
A buzz babies, and happy new comic book day to everybody. With me tonight is an amazing artist and also a great writer. Mr. Tyler Crook is in the house, and we are here to talk about his awesome book that I'm like so pumped. Lonesome Hunters. And like first of all, so I'm getting too excited. How you doing tonight, Tyler? Sorry.
I'm doing very good. That intro is amazing, by the way. That's very good stuff.
I make the joke. I have a music guy, and he like asked for some clips, and I paid him $50, and I say that's the best $50 I ever spent. And I used to party pretty hard, so that's saying something. But yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, it's I like to start things off high energy, high hopes. If it peters off, we may not end that way, but at least
we'll be exhausted by the end of this. We'll be like falling asleep by the end, no doubt.
But yeah, so you've got this the first collection from Dark Horse is out for Lonesome Hunters, and it's all four issues, and they're a little oversized. Like the issues were a little bit longer than normal. They were about 30 pages each or so, 28 pages.
The first issue was 20. I think it was 28 pages. It was basically as many pages as I could fit. Because basically, like most of at least Dark Horse's comics are 32 pages if you count the covers, the front and the back covers, and so I basically took up all the space that would normally be ads at the end.
Nice.
Yeah, for that, but then they're a little bit longer. I think 2 of them were 22 pages, which is normal, and then 2 of them were longer.
It's even with the extra pages, it reads really quickly. It's hard. You gotta like remind yourself to slow down and really appreciate the art that you did, man. You're such a phenomenal artist. My first foray with you was with Cullen Bunn's Harrow County, which we were talking about in the green room, folks, about how angry I am that I waited too long to get the hardcover editions, and now they're hard. You can get them, you just got to pay for it, right? And they really want you to pay for it. But that's got to feel good too sometimes, right? Like when you make something and then like it sells for double or triple. Like I'm sure like you're like, oh, that sucks for the fans, but like, hey, they really want my book that bad. Like it's rough. Like I don't actually feel good about that. Yeah, I would much rather people just like be able to get the book at cover price and enjoy it. Like that would be that's the way I'd rather see it happen. See, I would take my comps, man. I'd put them on eBay. I'd make that extra money, get a nice steak dinner. Like, sucks to be you guys. You could have pre-ordered it, but you didn't. No, I get it. Yeah, it's aggravating, and but it's part of the deal, right? Especially now with like single issues and speculation culture, man. You never know. You never really know like what, like if you miss something and try and get it later, right? It's always that fear. Yeah. I got into omnibus collecting during COVID, right? Because like getting stuff in the mail during quarantine was like, it made me happy. You
needed that.
It was like I get a little bit of the outside
that
world.
Brain chemicals.
Yeah, and I started buying a lot of omnibuses, and so did a lot of other people. And if for a while, if you didn't pre-order the omnibus or buy it the day of release, like I don't know if like Marvel and DC were just doing lower print runs at first, but they would sell out right away. And then the same thing would happen. This you'd be paying. I saw people paying like $200 and $300 for out of print omnibuses that they wanted, and I was like. Yeah. Man, I wish I had that fuck around money. Like I don't. It must be nice, but but yeah, and it's fixed itself. It's not as bad now. You can, if you don't get things right away, it's like the world's not going to end, and you're not like out of luck. So it's starting to calm down. Unfortunately, there's Harrow Counties.
There's 2 parts of it too. It's like not just that. It's not just that companies aren't keeping like a huge stock of stuff, but also like. If the first one, people don't order it when it goes right on sale, then like the second one is more, at risk of actually not coming out. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, I mean, I mean, you're people know who you are, and you've got like a great style, and you've had a lot of comic book success now, right? And so like, I mean, does that do when you get like, I understand like new creative teams, new writers and stuff, like brand new books, but I mean, is that something does that ever go away, or is that still something where you're like kind of like looking at pre-orders or numbers and sweating over it, or do you just not pay attention to that?
It's I sweat over it. I sweat over it a lot. Like I didn't so much with Harrow County. Like I'd worked with Cullen Bunn in the past, and by the time, at least I think, like if Cullen and I do another book together, like I probably wouldn't sweat that too much, because I think the two of us together are sort of a known quantity.
Yeah.
For doing the Lonesome Hunters, I've been a whole lot more nervous about it, just because there's a lot of people who only buy books for the writer. And as far as like writers go, I was sort of an unknown quantity, when this book started coming out. So, I mean, I've been really grateful at the number of people who say that they enjoy my writing. But yeah, it makes me very nervous. Like, and I'm still like way more confident in my art than in, claiming to be a writer.
Well, I mean, you're pretty damn good at both. Like, I don't want to goose you up too much, right? I mean, I'm a great host, but
please goose me up. I need it all I can get.
No, but I mean, like looking at. So I was in an MFA program, and like I used to write short stories and stuff, and so I know a little bit about writing. And so like I think about things like that. I think about pacing and structure and tension, and how these elements come together to make great narratives. Just looking at that alone without the art, right? And you do that. There's a lot of tension. You get great character work, like Howard and Lupe are phenomenal. Like I love them both. I love them together. Like they work really well both together and separate on the page. You do those like hero moments, right, where the characters have to like stand up in the face of adversity and impossible odds, and the payoff is sublime. Like all of these things that seasoned writers do and do well, you very much did that in these 4 issues, and you did a great job of it. And then when you take a step back and look at these absolutely gorgeous pages that you paint, right? Like it's insane. And like just all the love and work and blood, sweat, and tears that is in here, right? It's so impressive. And, and in a world where so many people are starting to turn to digital, even some painters now can even paint digitally, right?
Yeah.
Like what makes you feel at home in the paper and ink, like traditional world? Like, and I love that, like, but it's interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, that was sort of a decision that I made, semi-intentionally. It was sort of like, it was a thing where, so before I made comic books, I worked in video games for about 12 years.
Oh, cool.
And so I was just in front of a computer from like 8 to 20 hours a day for 12 years straight. And when I got into comics, I found that I was using my computer less and less and less, and I just loved that. It's been really great for my eyes and stuff, And so I was working on a book called Bad Blood, and before I got started, my editors had asked me if I wanted to color it too, and I said yes, but only if I can like color it with watercolor instead of doing it digitally. And they were sort of like, yeah, do whatever. We just need to get it done, Tyler. And so, so I was like, okay. And so I did that. Bad Blood was my first painted comic, and I did that all the way through. And then I was sort of like, so it was partly just for me to get through my workday was why I wanted to do watercolor stuff. But then as I started working on it, and especially as we were rolling into Harrow County, I was sort of like, this is like, I'm able to, if I'm doing this watercolor stuff, I'm able to do comics that don't look like anything else on the shelf. Yeah. Because even with the best colorists, there's a certain, there's a particular Photoshop look that has to happen. And yeah, and like even other people who do painted comics don't quite paint like I do. So I don't know. It felt like a way to sort of stand out in the field, and sort of like just set myself apart from the rest of the artists out there.
Is there like a superiority feeling too? Because I
No.
respect digital artists. I think it's cool, but they get a lot of shortcuts that you guys don't get, And we've all seen like the tweeted pictures of like an accidental ink bottle spilt right on a almost
Yeah.
finished page, or like the little accidents that can happen. But like when a mistake is made, it's a lot harder for you all to correct that on an actual piece of paper. As opposed to like when you have a digital file that you can mask and filter and rearrange layers and stuff.
I think though, like for me though, I still think that watercolor is faster for me than working digitally, because I've watched other artists who do the thing where they make a mark and then it's not quite right and they undo, and then they make a mark and it's not quite right and they undo, and so they're just like mark, undo, mark, undo, mark, undo. And me, it's like I make a mark and it's like if it's the wrong mark, I'm like, I guess I have to make a different mark to like compensate for that one. So without having an undo, I never have to redo anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever you're doing,
like anything else, the more you practice with it, the more like shortcuts you find too. Because I'm starting to slow down, but just because I'm getting old. But like by the time I was done with Harrow County, I was cranking through those books. Like I think I had done a couple issues in like 4.5 weeks or something.
Wow.
Which is like, that's seven days a week, long hours, but it's like doable,
I was going to ask like typically like how long it takes you to make like a page, like from like layout to line work to painting.
It's really hard to like figure out for a page, because it's like it takes me about 2 months now to do a whole issue.
Okay.
22 to 28 pages I can do in about 2 months.
Wow.
And that's like that's writing and layouts and pencils, because I do like it when I do like my inking and coloring, I do a page a day. And when I'm penciling, I pencil about 3 pages a day. And when I'm writing, I try to write about 5 pages a day.
Okay.
And so whatever that comes out to. And then I'm also like forcing myself to take, ever since pandemic hit, I've been forcing myself to take weekends, which is hurt my productivity a lot, but it's also like kept me alive,
Yeah, no, the comic deadlines are really intense, and especially when you're doing everything by yourself. But I mean, artists get overworked, in my opinion. So I think that's good. Like breaks are needed,
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I mean, especially sometimes you just, I mean, anything, right? Especially when you're in these creative fields. Like I remember being in writing classes and people talking about like what to do when you get stuck. And like one of the top things is to walk away from the project, from the computer, from the laptop, or whatever, go for a walk, play with your dog, cook a meal, right? Like rip a bong, do some drugs.
Yeah.
I know that,
let your brain like do a couple cycles that are on something else other than this problem you're having.
So I mean, I'm glad you structured that in because I guess there's also like that mentality of like to get the work done faster, to move on to the next project, or to take a break after the project, right? And so like, but yeah, I mean, it's your art doesn't ever feel rushed. It feels like there's a lot of care and heart in it, and nice. So like I like that. Like I said, man, whatever you're doing, you just need to like keep at that, because you're there. Like I feel like you're on it and in it to win it. Benjamin Morse, who's also a great artist, he says he's trying to take the weekends off. No, Ben, you need to do more Scarlet Twilight, because I need it. I need more. So like you take a break later.
Yeah, the nice thing about planning weekends off is that I find myself doing work on weekends occasionally, actually pretty regularly, but it's always like fun little things that I sort of didn't have the time to do, normally. Like I'll do like I'll sit down and do a little piece of fan art, but do like some experiments with, materials and stuff to figure out some production problems, but keeping it just to be fun you know, for weekend stuff.
Yeah. That's cool. Like I can dig that.
Yeah.
I just all I do right now is I just do Blake's Buzz all the time. So it's just I mean now it's you know, when I'm doing homework, you know, it's I'm reading great comics, right, to like prep for stuff like this and to you know gear up to like write reviews and you know I've had to everybody's doing videos now and YouTube shorts. And so I've had to learn how to like edit little reviews into like 1 minute. And it went from real aggravating to kind of fun. And I'm like, I'm starting to get the urges now where I like want to make more content, right? I'm like, I get like excited about stuff, but I mean, that happened too, to like train myself to like having to take breaks. And, that was also when I had a day job. Now, like this is my job, but for,
yeah,
you know,
man,
for another month at least.
All these social media platforms want you to make it a full-time job, even if you don't make any money at it. Like,
yeah,
they try really hard. I've been doing live streams on YouTube
Nice.
every Friday night, and yeah, like the urge to like start doing shorts and stuff is really strong, and I'm just always have to be like, you know what? That's not my job. You know, my job is to make a comic book, not to make a video about the comic book.
Yeah, that's for chuds like me. You
yeah, exactly.
You're the talent, baby. You gotta sit there and do the work that I get to analyze. John Westhoff, who's also like I feel like all my viewers are comic book people. He said you're the writer and letter on Lonesome Hunters was really difficult to work with.
Oh my god, I tell you what, I fucking hate those guys. I hate them. Yeah. Don't even get me started.
A lot of notes, a lot of editorial notes that requesting big changes, and
let's just say, you know, you stupid asshole. It's like that's all my notes to those guys.
when you take all the control like under yourself, and I know you have an editor too, but you know when you do all that solo, does it spoil you in a sense, like when you go back to like collaborate, like say you did something new with Cullen, right, and Cullen's telling you stuff and you're just like, this motherfucker, like I don't tell myself to do anything, like, but I mean maybe not to like that extent, but like when to like hand over some of that control that you get accustomed to when you're working solo, is that difficult to go back and forth?
Well, I haven't had to, like, since I started on Lonesome Hunters, that's been like the only like big project. I've done like some covers and stuff, but I haven't done any real collaboration projects. So I haven't had to go back and forth. But I do find that there's stuff about working solo that is great. Like, I think artistically, I'm really enjoying it. And I'm finding like I'm slowly sort of finding my own so like I feel like I have a writing voice that's my own, and then but I had this artistic voice that is like sort of me working with a collaborator.
Okay.
And I'm sort of starting to slowly find these ways that I guess you can feel it halfway through Lonesome Hunters, where I started. There's a scene where they're sort of driving through the you know, they're sort of going off on the road trip part of the story, and there's some sunsets and stuff like that. And that was the sort of the part of the story where I was like, you know what, I can actually take this time that I don't think the other writers that I've worked with would feel good about taking in the story. But I'm like, I feel like I'm in charge. I'm going to take this time to just show the sunset for, you know, a page. And like that, that's something that I still feel like I'm sort of discovering that part where I'm like, I can push things in certain ways that I've sort of always wanted to, but because of working with other people, I'm sort of like, this isn't quite what we're doing. But since it's just me, I can be like, hey, you know what? I am just going to do this thing. And so like that part of it is very fun and feels very good. I do miss having sort of that support group of having a collaborator that I'm like, where we're in this together. We're both sort of putting ourselves out together on this project. And doing interviews with, you know, going out and doing interviews with Cullen is great because, you know, the interviewer will ask you questions and I'll be like, I don't know, what do you think, Cullen? You know, and make him answer. But, so, and I can't lean on him now, you know?
Yeah. as someone who does a lot of interviews, I've definitely seen artists and writers do that. When I'll ask a question and they'll be like, I was like, that was in the script. I don't know, ask him or the
Yeah, you can
writer.
feel
The
that
writer will be like,
division of labor,
yeah.
where like you can tell like the writer will pass something off and be like, "It's your problem now."
And now all the problems are yours.
Yeah,
You got to deal with weirdos like me. There's no
exactly.
escape. I do remember that sunset moment, by the way, and I appreciated that you took that time to slow it down just a little bit. Them in the car, like when they stop to get a snack, when they find the shark tooth, like very heartwarming. I really thought one of them was gonna die, right? Like I was like, oh, he's making us fall in love, and he's gonna rip it all out from under our feet, right? And so I was really gearing up to like have my heart torn out of my chest, because there's a lot of emotion, which great. You kind of walk the line in this between fantasy and horror, right? It's a little mixture of both.
Yeah, I think so.
But you know, to do genre fiction correctly, you do have to you have to manipulate emotions. You have to bring in that universality, that humanness that we can latch onto, so that you can take us to these crazy places, right? But we can you know, adhere to other people's emotions and become part of the story. And again,
Well,
like these
especially
things you do really well.
I think with horror, like that's always the thing that I think is the most important, is like being able to identify with the characters. Like there's a lot of horror that gets made where like the characters just are sort of tropes, or they're just like so sort of bland and generic that it's like unclear
Yeah.
why we care if they live or die, you know. But I wanted to make sure that that the things that these people are going through feel important, and that it has weight, and that we get to take the time to see them react to things, you know, where the like the choices they make and the fights that they, you know, get into actually have you know, they take a toll on these characters, and I really want readers to feel that and feel for these characters.
Now, on spinning off of that, we start this story off in a really dark place for both for both characters, right? They're you know, Howard has this really kind of traumatic past where he was, you know, put into this church, this like kind of cult church demon hunter thing that, you know, he didn't want any part of, and couldn't really perform, and then was out, you know, kind of outcasted by his family and peers. And then of course with Lupe, like watching her whole family die. There's that scene in the car, right, where she talks about like how scared she is all the time. And she's like, you know, brain aneurysms and car accidents and fucking birds. Like, what? Like, I'm scared all the time. And I was like, dude, it like really grabbed me. It was very strong, like really solid dialogue throughout these 4 issues. You don't give yourself a lot of time, even with the couple extra pages Dark Horse allows. Like in a 4-issue arc that has come out on a trade, and you know, you only have a limited amount of time to get us attached to these characters and to really show us who they are. And you know, you mentioned like as you know, being an artist first, right, and then finding, you know, your writing prowess later. Like, did you struggle with that in these issues? Because it feels very natural. It feels like you just kind of had a really great eye and voice for humanity and for pain and hurt and trauma, and it didn't feel overbearing. It didn't feel like you were coming on too strong just for emotional effect, right? It was like just the right amount of hurt to like anchor us into these characters. It was flawless, man.
Thanks, man. That means a lot of it. Like it was, I don't know if it was hard to do. It was definitely a lot of work. You know, there's like so many drafts that went into like getting to this final version of it. And so much of it too, like I think like I had it outlined and pitched and approved just before the pandemic started. And I think that and then it got pushed back, and I did some stuff with Lemire, did the Black Hammer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that wrapped up, it was time to start Lonesome Hunters after that. But I think that I think so much of the pandemic stuff and just seeing people, across the world just dying informed a lot of sort of the the direction I took some of the stuff at the end there.
Okay. Well, hey, way to take a dark situation and make it work for you. I mean, that's, I mean, so many people just like accept defeat, right? It takes a lot of like mental strength and fortitude to look at that kind of real life darkness and turn it into art, turn it into something beautiful, right? I really respect that. We see musicians do it a lot. We see writers do. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things I like about great writing is like, even when it's fiction, how real things can feel and how confused we can get, right? When I think that's one of the powers and magic, how comic books are magical, right? Is we can relate to characters like Superman and for the tiniest of moments, right? Like think that they are real and the hope that they bring in these narratives are real. And for just that millisecond of our curiousness and foolishness to like allow ourselves to think that, we get the weight of everydayness is kind of taken off of our shoulders. And that's why I love comic books. That's the magical aspect of like why I'm a nerd and in love with this medium. And you took those things that I see and believe and did that. And it was kind of aggravating, honestly, because you did it so well. And you mentioned like Jeff Lemire and he's the same way. Like it's aggravating when you guys can just do everything and you make these like beautiful sweeping images and these fresh panel layouts and these pages look great and the dialogue hits and the structure hits, and it's just like you produce this wonderful narrative by yourself, and it's just like there's a big wow factor there, and I feel bad for you because I really hope that a volume 2 happens for Lonesome Hunters, and you left it in a way where it could. I'm sure book
It's
sales.
it's definitely happening. The next story arc comes out May 31st, I think, is when the
like 2 months from now, maybe
the serialized stuff. Yeah.
Holy shit! Hell, it's still at Dark Horse.
Yeah, still at Dark Horse.
Nice.
I'm actually like most of the way through the 3rd issue of the 2nd story arc right now.
Very cool. Is there going to be? Are you doing another 4-issue arc? Are you going to stick with that format?
Yeah, that seems to be like the standard Dark Horse size nowadays. Is the 4 issues. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, when I love Dark Horse, I think it's a great home for creatives to be. When you were getting ready, did you have to pitch it around quite a bit? Was it like a struggle, or did you kind of know where you wanted to be and you went to Dark Horse and you said, listen up, Joe, you're gonna do this. I'm gonna do this here, and that's how it's gonna be, and you guys are gonna like it. Or did you have to send off pitches? And
I did have to pitch, but I didn't pitch it around really. I sort of I've been doing Harrow County was at Dark Horse. My BPRD stuff was at Dark Horse. So I have like a good relationship with my editors over there. And so I just pitched to them, and nice. They have a whole process that they run it through to get it approved or whatever. And it got approved. So yeah.
Because I see that a lot too with indie works. Like people will have books out from Scout, right? But then the next book comes out from like Red 5 or somewhere else, or maybe has to go out through, like, some of my favorite writers go to, like, they'll do a Scout book or something, and then the next one they're going to Kickstarter because they can't get anyone to pick it up, and it aggravates me, right? And I mean, I guess I get it, because I know they have to say, like, what's going to sell, what's not going to sell, especially now. It's a hard time for indie publishers and indie comics, so you got to be picky, you got to be for sure of the strength of what you're publishing. But I that's cool that you lucked out with to be able to stay in your home, in your comfort zone, right? You got to stay on your comfy couch in front of the nice TV, and everything was where you left at. And you knew how things worked, because not everybody is that lucky. Also, not everybody can fucking draw as good as you. So I mean, that, I guess that helps too when you're like, when you're
and I think it helped that Harrow County did really well at Dark Horse.
Yeah.
So that was like that made it a lot easier.
That's good. Yeah. That Harrow County's amazing. And I love Cullen's work, and he's the same. He's very humble, and and he doesn't. I don't. If he knows how prolific he is, he doesn't show it like at all. Everybody's always impressed with like how many books he puts out and how hard, like he's just always working, and he's always got new stuff out from different publishers, and it's just like, and he's got a family and stuff too, you know, and it's just like it's like wow, and so yeah, it's
he definitely knows how hard he works because he's tired all the time. I know that, but you know, like working, that's like I think any success from Lonesome Hunters, so much of it comes from having spent the previous 10 years working with writers like John Arcudi and Colin Bunn and Jeff Lemire, and like working with those guys for me has been like a real masterclass in how to construct a story and how to write a story.
Yeah.
And so like I'm stealing like all of their like all of the knowledge that I could, you know, steal from them to get this thing done.
Do you ever do you have like readers, or do you ever like do you send out your scripts and have people look at it and stuff, or like
no, just my editors, and you know, my partner has to read everything before I send it out for sure.
Okay. That's
and they're pretty good at like giving me really good feedback.
Nice.
Yeah.
John, I agree with John when Howard gives the finger. That was such a he seems so like calm and broken sometimes and quiet, and then to like to see him get pushed over the edge, right? And then too, like when he finally starts swinging the sword.
Yeah. Well, that scene was funny. Like that was actually so I actually started writing this story a long time ago. I think it's in the back of the thing. Like 2012 or 2013.
Wow.
Somewhere in there was when I first started. And that was like, I sort of just started with that scene actually, where the kids on the stoop are harassing Howard. And that was kind of the only real like idea I had for the story, was like that scene. And so I'm really glad it got to stay in.
That's funny how that's where it started, because that's such a tiny little moment in the big tapestry that you created, right? Like
yeah.
And but it is kind of interesting too how that little annoying group of kids, right? And then what does he end up really dealing with is these like annoying, dangerous birds that like talk a bunch of shit, and they're really annoying and very much an inconvenience to him and his arc and what he wants to do. And he has to like, you know, confront all these little mini enemies, right? What made you want to go, like, as someone who's like, you can draw any monster, right? You can make any kind of spirit or being like come alive and terrorize the page. Like, what made you want to go the magpie route?
That's a good question. That's something a bunch of people have asked me, and I honestly cannot remember like why it was magpies. It may have been, so there's like a poem that Howard recites that oh man, I can't remember how
the spell thing.
Yeah, he like tries to do a little like ward against the magpies. And I think I might have started with that, where I read something about that's like a real traditional
oh really?
Yeah, it's some sort of like a traditional like folk song or folk poem, and it's like somehow related to magpies, I think.
Huh.
Now that I'm saying that, I might just be making that up. But like I said, I just can't remember why the magpies started, but it felt really fun to me. So that's sort of where we went with it.
They don't feel initially that they aren't super threatening, right? Until you find out, like when they possess these like the imagery, right, of like these birds like on someone's head and like just making a lot of noise, being real quirky and weird, and then, but then to like that when the people die, like after the possession, like was really ruthless, and I get that. Nice. You kind of had to do that to go to take the characters where you needed to take your characters.
Well, and the like. The birds needed to be scary. Like,
yeah.
I mean, birds, like, you know, in the movie The Birds, those are pretty scary, but like I needed something that was scary on in a more personal level, like something you would fight with a sword, basically.
Nice. We got Brewbaker's News. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey,
Is there
Brewbaker's
any
News.
rumor to a Tyler specific Comic-Con? Is there a lot of Tylers? I know like a couple.
Oh, wait, is there a convention held for all the Tylers at Comic Con? There is no truth to that. I think that's in reference to the joke. There was somebody did a podcast and they interviewed Tyler Boss,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody tweeted about it, but instead of tagging Tyler Boss, they tagged me.
Oh, nice.
Like they just let the autocomplete say Tyler Crook or whatever. And so then I made a joke about how we should do a podcast that was just oops, all Tylers.
Yeah, I've made that fatal Twitter mistake before of like tagging the wrong people. You know, I had a creator like not get mad at me, but there was definitely a tone. Like I wrote a good review, and I don't know how. I really don't know what happened when I was like tagging people either. But it wasn't even like the same person's name. Like it totally tagged like other creatives that had nothing to do with it. And one of the writers didn't even read the review because the review had everybody's name right and the right accreditations and stuff, just not the post. And this writer was like, I don't know what you're talking about. This person didn't work on this comic. This person didn't work on this. And I was just like, I'm really sorry. I guess you didn't read the review. And then like 2 days later, they were like, oh, Blake's Buzz wrote this really great. I was like, oh, now you read it. Now I'm not the asshole anymore, I guess. No, but I was like,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've definitely made that mistake before, and it's like you can't edit tweets, right? And then sometimes you'll notice quickly enough so you like delete it and make a new tweet. But yeah, like sometimes you're just like it goes out there and you're like, I'm done now, and then you feel really stupid later. Like, but
yeah, no,
that's
so
what
many...
life is, right? You do things and feel stupid about it, and some of us learn, and then some of us don't. Like this.
I started taking a position on with Twitter that like if I was typing something and I saw a typo, just before I hit send, I would just hit send anyway. Let it like intentionally leave the typo because that stuff should not like I don't know.
Yeah.
I actually have a thing set up to delete my tweets after a couple months because I'm like nothing that happens on Twitter is permanent. Like it's all just
like
a transient conversation. Yeah, like that's not like I don't want anyone to ever remember that I was on Twitter.
Well, I mean, we're all on borrowed time is the story now, right? Like everybody keeps thinking like our profiles are gonna get deleted and Elon's gonna ride his Tesla off into the sunset, laughing his ass off, or whatever he does. I don't know. Like,
I can tell you, like, I get a lot less traction on Twitter now than I did, 6 months ago.
See, that's what is aggravating for me. Is as a person with a podcast and who posts reviews and stuff, like a lot of, I have a Substack mail list now, which helps, but a lot of the success of like my Substack and the people that, because it's a free, right? So like anybody can click the link and read it. And, but a lot of it depends on like a publisher retweeting it or the creatives retweeting it. And then especially like with YouTube and like with this, like with my live streams and stuff, I let people know I have new content out. I'm on Instagram. Blake's Buzz has a Facebook page. I try and be everywhere, but I'm almost at 5,000 followers on Twitter, and I definitely don't have 5,000 followers on TikTok and YouTube. Right. And like, and so like, I'm trying to build audiences on these other platforms, and it's really hard. And so like, everybody talking about like Twitter going to get like flushed down the toilet. I'm like, I'm so scared. I was talking to Mark Russell about it. Like he's been on the show a couple times and he's been tweeting about like what's the next social media that we need to go to that, everybody's going to hang out and be comfy on. And I was like, man, this sucks. And he was like, yeah, like he was like, podcasters, people that do Kickstarters and stuff. Like he mentioned how like we're kind of like held at ransom because we depend on our followings and stuff that we have on this platform. And now everybody's scrambling and building an audience is hard. Even when you're good at what you do, it takes time to go to a different location and build a following. And for some reason, like Twitter, I've always had more luck on Twitter than I have on Insta and all this other, which is weird because I post a lot of pictures. So you would think like Instagram would be an easy niche.
Yeah,
to
Instagram
fit
just
into.
doesn't have the like shareability. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You can like share a post to your stories, but it's gone in 24 hours.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
It's weird. And like no one ever sees anything on
Yeah.
Instagram. It's like, you like, I never see like stuff that my friends post unless they send it to me.
Yeah.
Which
Hey,
now Twitter's doing that too.
a
So.
pro tip on Instagram. If you on the app, if you click on the word Instagram in the upper left, you can choose following, like a little drop down will come down and you can choose following and you can just look at a chronological order timeline.
Oh shit. Yeah. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's like you wouldn't know that you can click on it. There's no indication
They
that
like
you can
hide
click
it
on
from
it.
you. That's funny.
Yeah.
It's-
I've actually gotten to the point where I'm sending like mailers to comic shops, you know, physical postcards and
really?
shit. Yeah, just because like they might not see anything on any of the socials, you know.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a thing really until fairly recently. When I started like talking to some like indie creatives, like John Lee's. John Lee's talked about he sent like thousands of emails to like comic shops in the States when he had, unfortunately, when he had his new Aftershock book coming out, which is now like kind of held up in hiatus, like it's because all that weird stuff going on. But he talked about like he sent emails in the thousands, just like with a solicit, some art to like covers, and like I got this book coming out. It'd be really cool if your shop ordered some and carried it. And I didn't realize that was such a thing of like you guys contacting these individual shops and saying like, please check out my book, like please sell it, like this is what it's about, like, and then you have to like kind of pitch it to them too, like, and then yeah, to like to send out mailers and stuff, that's next level. But that's harder to ignore, right? If you get something,
yeah, exactly. That's
everybody likes getting stuff in the mail.
Hard
it's not
to
a bill.
Well, and especially if it comes from the creator. I know a lot of comic shops, like when they get mailers and stuff and emails from the publishers, they're sort of like whatever.
Yeah.
But when they get something from a creator, a lot of shops are much more likely to sort of check it out. I was thinking about this the other day because I was sending out a bunch of postcards, and it occurred to me that there's like 3 different groups that like a comic book creator has to pitch to. It's like you have to pitch to the readers to get them to read the book, but you have to pitch to the publisher to get the book made in the first place. But then you also have to pitch to the comic shops to get it, to get them to like get the books into their shop so that people can buy it.
Who's easier? Who's the easier con?
It's all hard because you know they all want to know different things. You know what I mean? Like a reader wants to know like a little bit of the story, but not enough to spoil it. The publisher wants to know like the whole story, and they want to know that it's something that they can sell. And then the comic shops seem to mostly want to know you know, how to sell it. They want to know like what the book is basically, and also like here's what they can say to a customer that will like make the customer think, oh yeah, I get it.
Okay,
I'd like to try this book. Yeah,
you know,
so it's
funny.
all
I've never had a
different.
comic shop that like sold me anything. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah, and I mean, the comic shop I used to go to, I went to because of convenience. It was like it was an easy drive. It was close. On Tuesday nights, I used to work in a bar, so like on Tuesday nights was our dollar beer night, and our dollar beer $5 pitchers. So we'd have all these asshole college kids come in and spend a ton of money, and they didn't tip that well, but it was busy enough that you still usually had a good night. And so like Wednesday morning, I'd wake up, I'd have a pocket full of cash, and I'd go spend it all at the comic book shop. And then you don't think about it, right? Because you're like, oh, like Fridays in a couple days, I'm gonna make more money on Friday. So like I used to spend stupid money at these comic book shops, man. And I had a pull list, and I would pre-order stuff and like tell them what I wanted, and still like every day I would print off a list of like what came out and what I wanted, and usually they wouldn't even have the pulls done. And so like I'd have to like collect all my stuff anyway. And so they weren't the best shop, right? And but yeah, I always just kind of had to like make sure that my stuff was right. And then sometimes they'd give me like a huge stack of comics. There'd be like 10 things that's not even on my pull that I didn't order or even want. And I was like, and so I've never had great luck with like shops that I went to in person. Now during the pandemic, I was friends with someone who worked at this shop, Comics on the Green, and we just talked a lot. And she basically, like, I would get 2 shipments a month, and no matter how much I ordered, they would charge me like $10 to ship, even if it was like a ton of like, so it was a really good deal. And they shipped really well, like bubble wrapped, and like you could run over these boxes and your comics would still be okay. And that was the only time I ever really had a shop like take care of me. And it wasn't one that I could even go to. It was many states away, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I never had a lot of luck at shops, but even then, like I always knew what I wanted. I never like went into a shop and they were like, "Oh, we got this new book coming out, you might dig," and like that just never happened. It was just like, "Hey, there's some free shit on the cabinet and the comics are on the table. Like take what you want and get the hell out of here."
I feel like when I was like a lot younger, I had that same experience.
Really?
You know, hey, Comics by the Bay, nice to see you.
What's up, man? Thanks for tuning in.
But I feel like comic shops have changed so much. I mean, those guys are really like, as hard as my job is, I feel like their job is harder. Like they have so much stuff to balance and stuff. And they really have like so many shops, like not every shop, but like there's so many shops that have really like, raised the bar for what a comic shop is over the last, 10 or 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, and I live near Portland, and there's just like, there's like 8 really good comic shops in this one town. Wow. It's unbelievable. And yeah, they'll really help you out if you ask them.
That's cool. Yeah, we have this Clint's Comics that's supposedly the oldest comic book shop in the country. And the owner died in a car accident, and his wife runs it now, and some community, shop people help. But it's real, depending on who's working there, is real hit and miss. And it's downtown, it's in Midtown. So like for me, I live in South Kansas City, so it's like a 20-minute drive. Parking sucks usually depending on what time you go. So like it's inconvenient to go there, but they like, I mean, like it's a big shop. They get everything. Like now they may not, if you don't get there soon enough, like they'll order all the indie stuff, but they may only get a couple issues so like if you don't go early enough and not pre-order things, you may not get what you want, but they do order like a ton of indie comics. But yeah, she's just kind of, you can tell that she is doing this because she like loved her husband, right? And is like carrying on the legacy, but is also just not into it. And so it's kind of a weird place. And then we've got Elite is pretty cool. And that's where like Jason Aaron's shop, because Jason Aaron lives out here. And like, so like supposedly you can like, well, he used to when he was writing Star Wars, you could go to Elite and sometimes like bump into him there. Cause he would go on New Comic Book Day. But yeah, they're a pretty cool shop too. But so yeah, we've got a few, and then the one I used to go to closed, which as you could hear me talk about it, you could probably realize why, like, but because I'm with you, man. I feel like, especially during the pandemic, like when things were hard, right? Is like shops had to like the shop that shipped to me, they started shipping to out of state customers that or like people that didn't have a comic book shop, or, oh, my comic book shop closed because of COVID. They were like, hey, we'll take care of you. Like hit us up, give us your pull list, we'll get it to you. And like, they started doing stuff like that. And so, yeah, or like curbside pickups and just changing the game a little bit. Right. And taking that extra effort to try and get people to still, even if they couldn't go into your shop, to come there and buy comics. And I mean, that's one of the better things, like that's one of the good effects, right, of like the craziness of the last couple of years was like the customer service element of comic book shops got better. Cause we've all heard those stories of like, getting talked down to for what you buy, or stuff like that, and
those shops are definitely still out there, but they're like, they're sort of a dying breed, and like, fortunately.
So I do like how it's you know, the even that Simpsons trope, right? It's not
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
but even he had like enough, you know, credibility and like even though he was a dick, like he warranted like customers to come. You guys, but so like, you know, and I just always felt I've always felt that like the amount of money I've spent in shops, like I should have been treated a little better. And that's and it like kind of stuck with me. And now like this is going to be bad. This is probably something that a comic book creator really wants to hear. I don't buy many singles anymore. Like I've moved to like I like the big hardcovers, the deluxe editions, you know. And then like I do DC Ultra. I use like the DC Ultra app, and you get DC books a month after they are on shelves. And I'm also very lucky, and I'm on a lot of press lists, and I get more comics a week than I have time to read. And I probably shouldn't say that because I'll probably be removed from everybody's press list now. Like, why are we sending this motherfucker our comics if you can't even read them? But you know, like, but I mean, like Dark Horse, Dark Horse has been really, really cool to me since I got added to their press list. And like, I mean, like I tell them, like when you were coming on my show or when I have like other Dark Horse creatives on, and they get like excited about it, and they, you know, they retweet it and share it on their social medias. Like not every publisher does that. I think they're really cool and it kind of a step ahead of the game. And they also ask for anytime you write a review or do stuff like this, like they want you to like send the link to their press people. And so like anytime, so that's like part of the emails you get as press. So I like that you're at home with Dark Horse. Like the more I know about Dark Horse, the more I work with Dark Horse people, the more I like the company. And it's very, they seem like great people to work with. And it's good to see indie publishers thriving still when it's not that way for everybody right now. Right. Like indie comics is a rocky terrain and kind of scary right now. So it's good that not everybody's struggling like that, you know? How's like, I mean, I know like Dark Horse is going well, but I mean, have you experienced any of that? Like any other projects from other publishers that you've had issues? Like, I mean, I don't want you to name drop anybody or call anyone out, but I mean, it's just, I've heard these stories a lot now where like people have these projects and then the book's not coming out, or we haven't got paid for months, and you know, like new pencil down scenarios, and it's kind of scary.
Now I've been really fortunate in my career that I've like, I'm sorry about that. My pup has to come say hi.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. I got dogs are good.
Like I haven't had anything really go south. Like the worst thing that ever happened to me in the industry is, well, I'm not going to talk about it, but like it wasn't even really that bad. Nice. You know what I mean? Like
that's good.
Yeah, like I know, like no, I've just been like really, really fortunate that I've been able to work with good companies. And Dark Horse and Oni have both been great.
Nice
to me. Yeah, and that's most of my stuff has come through them. Like I've done a little bit of Marvel and DC work, but not enough for me to hate that company or them to hate me. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's good. I feel like Marvel and DC stuff. Like I know it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because like everybody wants to get there, but then some people are like, well, wow, once we got here, it's not the party we wanted. I got to meet Jimmy Palmiotti at Kansas City Planet Comic-Con a couple weeks ago, and we did a little interview, and listening to him talk about the industry, like I learned so much stuff about comic books, and just like all he and Joe Quesada did for like Marvel Knights, and to like pull Marvel out of that rut, and then how they just kind of like Jimmy said, he was like they never said thank you, and then they started making all these movies, and then at first they didn't even have like the thank you deal in the credits, like they had to kind of push for that and fight for that. And then he also mentioned like at DC when him and Amanda were writing like a big character, and he was like, and when our run ended, they were just kind of done with us, and they were like, well, the next people are in, and you're out, bye. And he like he did this panel, right, and he did this big speech about like how kind of jaded, like working at these big publishers happened. And then he smiled to the crowd and he was like, and that's why I do Kickstarters right now. And he makes a lot of fucking money on Kickstarters. So
Yeah.
it's
yeah, that's another thing I'm really lucky about. Like the work for hire job that I would consider like the top tier on my list was working on BPRD. Like
nice.
Even before I got that gig, like that was sort of like, if someone was like, what comic would you like to draw, Tyler? Like what existing one? Probably BPRD would have been the first thing on my list. And I got that out of my system, in the first couple of years, which is nice.
Yeah, that's a huge that's a huge like brand to get to work on. It's crazy that he just keeps cranking that stuff out. Like I love how he has like unlimited stories like under like cards in his sleeve that he just like right now Hellboy in Love is coming out right now, and it's just like all he does all this, and it's working, and go for it, dude. Like keep doing, and it never feels like he's milking it, right? It never feels like he's like he's like run out of stories and rehashing. Like he's just like he has these great characters and this great world, and he's just like, I don't have to do anything else. Like he's in his little happy place, and he gets to make all the stories he wants.
And to be fair too, he gets a lot of help from guys like John Arcudi and Chris Roberson and stuff who are like doing a lot of the writing. Stuff.
Yeah. He's got a big team of people and editorial and stuff too. Yeah. It's just, you don't see that a lot now, right? I always make the joke that like Marvel and DC don't think we can count past 12. Cause I feel like it's always rebooting back to number one or like, whatever the next big crossover is. And I love that stuff. Like I joke about it, but I love the X-Men. I love DC. I love, Wolverine and Superman, and all that, but I made this platform, off indie comics, and I started doing work with like Kickstarter people, and now it's interesting because like I don't really know why, but like more people are, I can't tell fucking time, but more people are wanting to talk to me, and I'm getting bigger guests. I'm getting Marvel and DC people that want to come on the show and promote their work, because a lot of people don't realize that is even though like the bigger publishers have PR teams and they send out emails and they send out pressers and all this stuff, but like you still gotta sell yourself. You still have to be your own PR person a lot of times, even if you have a big gig at the big two, like, branding and marketing is always going to be an important element to comic booking. And so, people are starting to notice me. And I met this indie writer, Michael Gecko Adams at the con last weekend. And he hit me up on Twitter and he's like, hey, come see me. Like, I want to show you my comics and talk to you. And he's like, you're cool. I want to meet you. And I was like, all right. And so I got 5 minutes with Kevin Eastman. Right. And I got to do this. I got to interview Kevin Eastman in a hallway.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dude, it was crazy. And so I'm like, right after that, I go to this guy's table, right? And I'm like, I'm still kind of nervous, and I'm all antsy, and I'm just like, oh my, like I've been a huge Ninja Turtle fan my whole life, so that was like meeting a hero moment, right? And he was so nice and so kind, and like just like, as someone who like has done all this so many times before, still felt excited to do this and be with fans, and that a lot of people lose over the decades. It didn't feel like he lost that, right?
Yeah. And dude, I got to meet that dude when I think I was 13.
Oh wow!
And I went to a San Diego Comic Convention, and it was before it was in the big convention center. It was like in a smaller convention center, and it was actually like a theater, so there was like a mezzanine for seats. And me and my buddy, we were like, had gone to just sort of like sit up in the mezzanine and like look at all our comics. And he was up there doing a drawing for the auction that they used to do.
Oh, nice.
And God, he was just like so fucking cool. He like just spent like 20 or 30 minutes drawing a Ninja Turtle and like chatting with us while we hung out, and like. And it was just like so. I don't even remember what we talked about, but I just remembered he was like very like he just gave us so much time. You know what I mean? It was really kind of him. And then of course, like this is when he was still married to Julie Strain, and so after a while, she came up and like to get him or something, and he's like, "This is my wife." and me and my buddy were both just like, we need to be comic book artists. It's like, this is the life, man.
He definitely seems to have had a life. Like he did a panel with Chris Claremont and Jimmy Palmiotti, and that was just crazy. Like those three guys just talking and joking about comics, right? And like their knowledge, like the knowledge that the three of them had, and Jimmy kept giving him shit because he's like, you don't even belong here. You had this weird turtle fever dream and made $1 million. Like, and I mean, he was joking and stuff, but yeah, dude, Kevin, like they didn't let press in when they were supposed to. So I missed my morning appointment with him, and I came up to him and I told him what happened. I was like, dude, I was like, I'm sorry, I missed our deal. I was like, I know you got this panel. Can we talk after the panel? He was like, yeah, just grab me after the panel. We'll chat real quick. I was like, cool. The panel went long. And they kicked us all out of the panel. And I went up to Kevin and he was like, well, I was like, we can't interview in here. And he did. He let me set up my camera and the microphone in the middle of the hallway, and like let me interview him in a hallway, and just like didn't have to do that, right? He could have very much been like, dude, you missed me in the morning. Like we agreed to this, but no, he like went out of his way to talk to Blake's Buzz and like give me a little 5 minutes, and like that made me feel like $1 million, man. And I never thought that this would be my life, right? That I could message people that I respect and admire their work, like you, and like to read this like amazing comic and be excited about it and say, hey, can I interview you, and have you guys be like, oh yeah, sounds awesome. And it just keeps escalating, right? Like I got a press pass for the convention, and I'm, getting to talk to new people and meet new people, and people send me comics and people send me exclusives. I've got a few pull quotes on some books, and like it blows my mind, man. And it's I love it. Like I said, like I love it so much, and I'm forever thankful that, because I know you guys are busy and deadlines are hell, and you guys got a million and one things to do. And so I just like from the bottom of my heart always appreciate when you guys like give me the time and take time out of your schedule to deal with my bullshit. I
think that people like, I don't think I really understood this until I got into the industry and started working in the industry, but it's just such a small community. You know what I mean? It's like the comics, I read somewhere that someone estimated that there was maybe 1,200 comic book professionals like in America.
Wow.
Who are like doing it for a living. There's probably more than that who aren't doing it or doing it, but aren't making a living from it,
Yeah.
But it's just such a small group. And like everyone, I mean, like, I don't think Jim Lee probably doesn't feel this way, but like almost everyone I know feels like that they're this close to losing it at all the time. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think comic book creators are mostly, I mean, with a few exceptions, mostly really cool and humble people.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really incredible. Like, when I haven't been to an event in a long, long time, but when I do, like meeting people who are heroes of mine and having them know my work and say hello to me. And like some of them, like sometimes will seek me out to say hello to me.
Wow.
And it's just like, this is amazing.
I bet.
It's really incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. A couple people knew who I was at the con. Like Jimmy, I'm just name dropping because I never get to do this. Like I don't usually have names to drop, right? But like on Sunday night, Jimmy was one of my last interviews, and I had hit him up on Twitter and been like, hey man, like I'm press at Planet. Like, are you cool to do an interview sometime? And it was funny, man. Everybody told me, they were like, yeah, Sundays are the best days to do interviews. Later in Sunday, it's going to slow down. It's the least busy day. And so they were like, just keep an eye on our booths. And if the booth looks slow, swing by, we'll talk for a few minutes. So like, that was great, but fucking like 13 people told me the same thing. So I'm just like doing figure eights around the comic book area, like trying to pay attention to everybody's booth and swinging by. Dude, Sunday I did 11 interviews in one day. And
Holy moly.
I was like, I'm the fucking man. And I got everybody I wanted, except I missed Garth. I got to meet Garth Ennis and talk to him for a little bit, but he left early to get on a plane. And so I I didn't get to interview him, but like everybody else I got to interview. And, you know, some of the bigger names, they have like the handlers, right? Like the people that take the money
Yeah,
and said, and so Jimmy's guy, he's like, he sees me, he's like, hey, what's up, man? What do you need? And I was like, well, Jimmy said he was cool for an interview. Like I was seeing if he had time. And the guy's like, he looks at me, he's like, let me ask Jimmy. And I was like, okay. And so he goes over to Jimmy. He's like, Jimmy's guy wants to do an interview. And Jimmy looks up and sees me. He's like, yeah, I got time for him. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like a fucking superstar. Like, so yeah. It was just, that was my first con, right? So my first con, got to do press, got all these great interviews, been dropping them on YouTube and stuff, and learned, like, I never got to, even waiting in line for some people, man, like just talking to the people you're waiting in line. Like I was in Chris Claremont's line for a while, and I like made friends with people in this line. And it was just like, none of my real life friends like comic books. Some of them still watch the movies. They're all real supportive of what I do, and they like the podcast and stuff. But like, I can't talk comic books with my local people. Right. And that's how all this started. Was I got, you know, a little popular on Twitter and started finding people to nerd out with. And then when the pandemic hit, everybody had a Zoom account, right? So we would just like hang out on Zoom and talk to each other when you couldn't do anything and we were bored. And then we got the bright idea to like hit record on Zoom. And we're like, oh, we're podcasters now, right? And then, like,
it's happening. It's happening.
It's like all that spun out of that, you know. And so, and like I said, now everything's a lot different than it used to be. And I never thought people would care what I had to say, let alone like be able to, you know, interview, you know, big comic pros to super talented people and have people like enjoy talking to me. Right. Like I've now learned that like I'm a pretty good interviewer, you know, and I'm all over the place, but you know, I kissed like that right amount of ass, right? Like it's not too much. Like I grease you up a little bit. I get the wheels spinning.
I don't know. You could be kissing my ass a little bit more. I could deal with a little bit more.
Well, I mean, if we're going to go there, I've kept you over an hour, so I guess it is a good time to remind people why we're here, which was to celebrate Lonesome Hunters, which is one of the coolest 4-issue comics I've read in a while. And I cannot get enough of your art. The watercolor painting, I mean, you could see behind me, folks, like there is fear and terror and trauma buried in these characters' eyes that you can see. It pierces you from the page. It literally like it infects you with drama while you're reading. And it's, you know, it's one thing to write, but like I said, dude, when you can have your characters emote that well, not everybody can do that, right? Like some people are really good at the dramatics, right? Some people are really good at big action scenes. And you know, some people are a good writer but can't draw for shit, and vice versa. And you, sir, you can draw, you can write, your characters can emote, they can feel, they can express those emotions clearly in panel. And when the swords start swinging, that looks really good too. Like there's Thanks, you do everything right in this comic. And you know, it like I said, I knew your work from Harrow County, and I loved every panel of that too. But it was very cool seeing you tell the story both in art and prose, like to see you handle and tackle both of those seemingly effortlessly and with no flaws. It's great, and wow, thanks, I really hope that people watching this like pick it up. Like I know John read this and was talking about it online. And this is true, right? I try so hard to like be Mr. Positivity, and it's like, you know, if I don't like a comic, I don't review it, right? I've made the joke many times where every comic book is somebody's baby, right? And I'm not going to shit on somebody's baby. No one wants you to shit on their baby, right? It's just like babies shit on themselves. You don't need to do that for them. And so, you know, I just, if I don't like something, I don't talk about it. I would rather things that get me excited about comics, and that I, like, I want to tell people about that. I don't want to tell people don't go buy this, it's shit. Like,
Well, and there's also a complete disconnect too between having followers online and actually selling a book. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
there are people who make a much better life, have a much better income than me, who aren't even on social media, you know? So,
Which is,
like,
it's crazy. I wish I didn't have to slut it up on Twitter. I've met great people. I've met great people on Twitter, man. But like,
yeah,
and like I said, like, I hate that fear that Elon has put in me, that he's going to take it all away and I'm going to have to find something new.
it really makes me sad. Like, as much as I, love to shit on Twitter, like, it was a great platform for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's really sad to see, like, the direction it's going.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be like, it's already, like, I've already noticed like a big uptick in just weird, bad, like, just the dumbest things making it through to me, when it used to be filtered out a little bit more.
Have you noticed how, like, I see stuff and I'm like, ooh, why am I following this person, assuming that I'm following them because it's on my feed, and I go to unfollow them and I'm not even fucking following them. And like, none of my friends are following them, and I'm like, why is this guy on my feed? Like, why? Like, I don't want to know about why AR-15s are great. I don't follow those kinds of fucking people, right? And so, like, so there's a lot of weirdness on Twitter. But then I remember, like, when Hive popped off, right? And like, Hive was really fun for like a day, and all the indie comics people went over there, and it was like this really great house party, and the kegs never ran out, and everybody was having fun, right? And then 4 days into it, like, it shut down for a few days, and then everybody was like,
well,
we're going back to Twitter.
Almost 3 weeks or something.
Oh, wow, was it?
Like,
damn.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm still like, I'm actually really enjoying Mastodon a lot. It's like way different because it doesn't have an algorithm. Like, there's
it's weird.
Literally zero algorithm. So you only see chronological stuff, and it's sort of strangely like it's like intentionally not addictive. You know what I mean? Like, with no algorithm, it's not as addictive. So it just sort of feels a little bit like weirder. It doesn't feel like the spaces that we're all used to online, but I'm finding it actually kind of a relief. And and then Instagram, I'm posting a lot more art on Instagram nowadays too.
Nice. I don't know if I need to check. I don't know if I'm following you on Instagram. I'm really bad. One of the, you may get this too, how aggravating it is when you have a platform, or when you're trying to sell a book, or when you're trying to get eyes on your art, or a new project, right? How much it sucks to post the same fucking thing 4 times on 4 different platforms, right? And then and just like it's just like, I get tired. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like,
let me ask you this: did you know that there is a soundtrack for Harrow County?
No, I didn't.
So there's an original soundtrack that I wrote and recorded. You can find it on Bandcamp if you just go to harrowcounty.bandcamp.com. But I post about that at least once a month for like the last 6 years. And every time I post about it, somebody is like, I didn't know this existed. How long has this been there? And it's just like, and it'll be like people who have followed me that whole time, and they'll just not see it.
I was gonna ask, because I see a bass and a guitar and a piano behind you. So like, are you one of those assholes? You're just good at everything. You're just good at everything.
I don't know. I'm like if anyone gives the Harrow County soundtrack a listen, I'm really proud of that. But I still have a hard time considering myself a musician. Like, I definitely keep my music stuff a hobby, and I'm just only do it for fun, and I'm very inconsistent with it. So
John is another big fan of yours.
Yeah, there you go.
So he didn't know either. And John is also a musician. I don't know how busy you are. Part-time comics. John does these really cool comics, and he does Drumsticks of Doom. It's this werewolf. It's basically like if Black Sabbath like opened a gateway to hell. And it all invaded Earth, and now
I feel like
we live like that.
I feel like I may have seen that posted somewhere.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's pretty good about being annoying as fuck and when his kids. No, I love him to death. And but he's I've like he's been on the show a few times and stuff. And but yeah, it's interesting. I feel I'm an okay writer, but like I tried to play bass. If I would have
Mhm.
stuck with bass, I never wanted to practice. I just wanted to play bass when I was like aggravated or wanted
Yeah.
to jam out with friends for a little bit. I never stuck with it. And it also fucked me up when I was taking bass lessons. I went to I went to Catholic school. And so
Mhm.
when I was taking bass lessons, they were teaching me like how to play church songs so that I could play in Sunday mass. And I was like, I want to like, I'm like fucking getting into Tool, right? Like, I'm like, I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
learn how to
That's
do Tool songs. Like,
I bought my bass off a guy off of Craigslist, and he was like, "Yeah, I've been playing this in church for the last couple years or whatever." And I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna slap that right off of here."
That's awesome. Well, yeah, no, it's I like that. I like when artistic endeavors kind of spiral out into other elements, and but that
Yeah.
so when you make a soundtrack for a comic, now
Mhm.
is it intended? Are you wanting people to like play that while they read it, or is it like they listen to it after they read it, and it like brings back feelings and emotions and
It's kind of both, like,
okay.
because it is such like a weird thing. Like, my very first thought was to do it so that you could sync it. You could like hit play and like start reading a book, and it would like follow
Okay.
through and match up. But it was like, the more I sort of thought about that, I'm like, there's no way. Like, I don't know how fast anybody reads. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way to
There's
sync
dumb
that up.
people out there, Tyler.
Yeah, there's some people who read a comic in 5 minutes, and there's
Yeah.
some people who take 20.
Yeah.
So then I sort of like just started doing it based on my sort of interpretation of different scenes in the first couple arcs. Um, so yeah, but the idea too was basically you could put it on while you're reading Harrow County and
Okay.
like get a vibe going, sort of a thing.
Nice. Well, shit.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to get a job so I can go buy these
Yeah.
hardcovers finally and do the reread. I guess I could get it reread it on Hoopla.
Yeah, and it's on. Dark Horse has their own app too that
Oh, that's right.
you know
I forgot about that. Yeah.
it's actually it's I don't know if it's my favorite app, but it's a good app. Like it definitely works. Like I read tons of stuff on there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going back to like the weird frame that like comics are in right now, right? Like, I used Comixology for many years, right? And I paid for it. I paid that $6 a month, and you got to do the free rentals, and if you bought new stuff, you got a little bit of a discount, and it was and then I still can't believe that Amazon just tossed that to the wolves, man. Like it's still
it's
running,
really
but
unfortunate.
it's sad. Like, but now there's new stuff out right now where there's Global Comics. They're about to drop an app that supposedly they've been doing really well on app research, and they've like the
Interesting.
people that have tested it really like it. It's a lot of like now like Boom, AWA, like it's almost worth it if you're a fan of heavy metal. Like you can read like back issues of heavy metal on it. It's $8 a month, but they have some kind of thing where they break down like the money, your subscription money goes to like the comic books that you read. So like if you never read a Boom comic, if you're only reading like AWA stuff, that money's going to go to the AWA people and not the other. So they like divvy up the funds in a weird way. But a lot of Kickstarter people and crowdfunding people are putting their stuff up there. There's a lot of free comics from like that they'll upload from crowdfunding. But yeah, they're one of the big contenders right now. There's a new one that Vault just signed up with called Omnibus. And like that's a new digital outlet. And so there's new stuff popping up now, and it's just like it's like social media, man. I was fucking comfy. Comfy. I had an app that worked. I have a massive Comixology library, like, so even if I quit using Comixology, I have to keep it on my tablet because I have thousands of comics I bought on there. And then also like I do Humble bundles a lot for like that goes to charity.
Yeah.
So like it's funny. Like I used to say, like I don't really like digital comics, and now that digital comics are a huge part of my life. No, when you have a nice tablet, it's the digital comics aren't that bad. Like it's
No, they're actually reading it on my iPad Pro is pretty great actually.
right. Like it's crazy. Okay, as an artist, like this, I don't get to
Mhm.
ask this much to like artists. So like when you have like, so I have a new Galaxy tab with the OLED screen and
Okay.
colors just fucking pop, dude. Like, and so when you're reading digital comics and you crank that brightness up, and there's really nothing like it. And then if you go from that to like a physical, like a floppy or an omnibus or something,
Mhm.
the pages could look kind of flat, right? You're kind of like, I'm missing something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people don't like hearing that. Like there's those purists out there that are like, no digital never. But as an artist, and as an artist who you don't do digital art, right?
Mhm.
You're pen and paper and paint. Like I mean, so
Well,
you've said the same thing. Like it just
I
looks
should
good on
specify.
an
I
iPad.
do like I pencil digitally nowadays.
Oh
So
really?
I do work like partially digitally, but I print out my pencils and then I ink and paint over the top of them
Okay. So
on
what kind
paper.
of printer are you using, right? Because you have to print out like
Can
bigger,
you can
fancy pages.
almost see it right there. It's like a Epson.
Oh, that big giant fax machine
It's
behind
not even yeah,
you?
it's not even that big. It just has a rear paper feed, so like
Okay.
you can feed 11 by 17 through it
Oh,
and
okay.
it works great.
Because
Um,
11 by what are like is that the size of like actual like comic book pages that like people draw on for like Marvel and DC?
Yeah, usually. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a tabloid size or the pages that like when you get Dark Horse pages, like because they'll send you the pages printed with the blue line for the template or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and those are actually what is it called? A3 or whatever. They're like the metric page size,
Okay.
but it's almost 11 by 17. It's just
Okay.
off by a tiny bit.
That's cool. Yeah.
So,
Well, that's cool though. But I like that.
yeah.
That's so you're like you're in a mixture of both worlds. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, like I like to do I like to pencil digitally because then it gives me a chance to actually like adjust compositions a lot more. You know, I can draw something and if it's a good drawing but it's in the wrong spot, when it's on paper you have to just erase the whole drawing and hope that the
Oh.
when you redraw it it's in the right spot that it'll look good. But yeah, there's a big difference between like RGB, which is what our screens show,
Uh huh.
which is red, green, and blue, and books are printed with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So it's
Yeah.
like a whole different like way of making colors, and yeah, it definitely like grays things out. And like, there's a lot of colorists who work in RGB, and then at the very last moment they switch it to CMYK, and like in a good program it'll show you like a good approximation of what those colors are going to look like printed, and it's always like a huge disappointment because it always goes from like this like fun bright saturated thing to like a muted grayish hue on everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely weird going like from one to the other. If I'm doing like research for something like or reading, I'm writing a deal. I'm trying to write a piece about Last Ronin and body count
Mhm.
and what I asked Kevin Eastman at the show and so like going from like looking at stuff digitally and then like opening a book and it's just like
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I like having books still. Like I like the way they feel. I like hardcovers. I like dust jackets. I'm
Hmm.
real careful with my like I want everything to stay pristine and
Well, and everything we were just talking about with all these companies, it's like when you buy a digital copy, it doesn't matter like who you buy it from. It just
yeah
you don't own it.
yeah
Like you just can't. You know what I mean?
yeah
At some point the you're gonna get a new computer and it's gonna have a new operating system and the software isn't gonna get, the new version isn't gonna be upgraded to the new version of the operating system. It's like we'll talk about music stuff. Like I have recordings that I did in the 90s and I've been trying to get them off of these CDRs.
oh
But
wow
like I need to buy like a very specific piece of hardware that I recorded it with. And then I have to also get one of like two CDRs that they made for it or that were compatible with it that they haven't made since like 2003. You know
oh
what I mean? So
wow
it's just like, and those like CDRs cost, 250 or $300 nowadays. It's just like,
that's
oh,
crazy.
all to get these like really bad songs that I recorded in the 2000s. So I'm like, I'm sort of like, that format stuff is just like It's always going to eat. Whatever it is, whatever's digital is always going to be eventually just gone. And like, so, but if you own a book, you own a book.
Yeah,
It's yours,
true.
you know, as long as it doesn't burn down in your house or whatever, you know, you're safe.
Yeah, or flood or tornadoes or something fun like that.
Yeah, or your cat wreck it or whatever. Yeah.
Or my puppy used to, when we got our new puppy Bruce, he doesn't do it anymore, but he would only eat bagged and boarded comics. He liked the plastic. The little fucker, man. And he didn't get many of them. He didn't get anything that was really expensive or so, but it was just very, very scary that this new puppy you fell in love with is trying to eat your fucking comic books, right? And you're like, oh no, like, I love you, but we can't, this relationship isn't going to last, pal.
That's like my records over here. Yeah. Like I've had enough cats that decided that that's like the best scratching post. There's the wall of records. So you can sort of tell like which records I bought when I had which cat.
That's a funny deal about format is how like it like that died and came back now, right? And it's like a new like infatuation and so many people like collect vinyl again, and they're content, like every new big album gets a vinyl edition. Now, I feel like too. So,
and it's great when you buy a record like this. Not always, but you know, at least like 80% of the time nowadays, it comes with a download code. So you get like, you can download the MP3s. You don't even have to try to rip your records to listen to them on your phone or whatever anymore.
Yeah, it's
it's a great.
I've gotten a few. I like it, but I'm running out of space, right? So I quickly, like with all the comic books and stuff, like I have to build like shelves now, and I have like I have like a recording nook for the podcast and the live streaming, right? And so it's just like I'm very much like I'm like reaching hoarder territory, but it's not trash. It's expensive books, but it's just I'm just running out of space. So yeah, like I have a handful of vinyls. But not as many as I would like, and it's just not. It's not. So my receiver burned out. I haven't bought like a new receiver. I have all these like really nice I had like a really great Klipsch 5.1 setup, and look, like those speakers will last forever if you take care of them. But they're big, right? Speakers get smaller and smaller. I feel like, but the output stays the same. So like my bookshelf speakers are massive, but yeah. So I don't. I have to get like a new receiver and set up my record player and all this stuff. And yeah, I'm just running out of room, and I feel like someone's gonna find me dead eventually. I'm gonna be like buried under a pile of like unread omnibuses that have collapsed and trapped me, and you know, like my friends are going to find me in a garage buried under comics.
I've gotten brutal about that, especially like once I started working in the industry. It's like books just sort of start showing up a lot. You know what I mean? Like you just start getting more and more books, and I've gotten really brutal about culling. Like every couple of years I'll cut out huge amounts of books. And you know, good tip is like libraries always want comic books. Like usually when you go to donate books to libraries, they're sort of like, I don't know. Like we don't want all your really terrible books that you don't want. But when you take them comics, even like mediocre ones, they're usually pretty happy to get those.
Oh, nice. I mean, I'll have to think, because that's like a field. You're like helping out the potential nerds too. Like, and kids to find new stuff. That's cool. I'll check that out. Now, Tyler, this is amazing. It feels like we just started talking, but I've kept you for about an hour and a half, and I know you probably got shit to do. And so the polite host that I am, this is the part where, real quick, like I'm not sure if you've got like a newsletter or a Substack or where the best place to follow you online is. Like you said, you were on Mastodon. Like where's a good place to keep track of you and new stuff you got coming out?
Let's see. Mastodon. I'm Mr. Tyler Crook at mastodon.social. I'm on Instagram as Mr. Tyler Crook. This is on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So on YouTube, I live stream Friday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific time. I've been doing that.
Mountain time.
Not Mountain time. Yeah, Pacific time. I've been doing that pretty consistently all year so far, and it's cool. It's been really great. So that's a great place where you can just ask me stuff directly, and I'll, answer people's questions right there. Usually I'm doing artwork, we're either working on a page for the day, or I'll do like a commission or something at the same time and chat.
Nice.
Um, where else? I do have a newsletter. You can sign up on my website, mrcrook.com. Yeah, Harrow County, the soundtrack is on all the streaming services. You can download it for free off of Bandcamp.
Do we just search for Harrow County and it'll pop
Yeah,
up?
yeah, it should pop up.
I'm really excited. I may have to. I got a Patreon, right, and I've been like struggling to like come up with shit that. It's really nice that people want to give me money, but that Catholic guilt weighs heavy when I don't do things for them, right? And so I'm like trying to come with that, but that would be cool to do like a book club with the soundtrack and talk about the how it makes you feel, how it makes you experience the story, like when you have not just the deadness of silence, like because when I write, I've never been one that I never liked writing in coffee shops because I people watch real bad, so I won't work. I'll watch weirdos order coffee and then or watch the cute server and dream of asking for a number or something, and then and when I write at home, like I can't write to music. Typically it distracts me. And so like when I write reviews and stuff, like it's silent. And then of course when I record videos and stuff, you can't have any fucking noise. So it's like, I feel like a lot of my comic book stuff is just in the dead of silence, which I think that's why I talk so much now. Everything's starting to make sense now.
Yeah, it's so funny on my live stream, like, because that's like something that I still struggle with, because I'm usually like doing artwork and drawing something at the same time. And I'm so used to drawing with music going that it's like, it can be really hard sometimes. And I imagine sometimes it's hard to watch too, because it's just like silence and all you hear is my little pen going, or whatever, But yeah, I'm lucky enough that I can write with a little bit of music, as long as it doesn't have any lyrics in it.
Yeah. Or so like you can listen to like musical soundtracks and scores and so I can do that sometimes.
I can sometimes, like, it's got to be real, like there's a real kind of like down tempo ambient like instrumental stuff that I can kind of do, but if it gets like too excited, I'm like, ooh, this is too much.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's just it's funny what can distract, like keep you from getting in the zone, right? And it's so like it's weird too, because it's like sometimes it's like 5 o'clock in the morning and it's just like no sound at all, and it's just like other outsiders looking in might be like, this is the saddest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life, and I'm just like I'm like, oh, there's what I do love though is thunder and rain. Like when rain and thunder, like it's super. I'll fall asleep easier. Like if I'm reading, I'll do that old man deal where I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna stretch out and read, and like that happens real quick. But yeah, like I really do like reading when it's like thundering and raining.
I have such a hard time as a homeowner with houses that leak too much. Like, like thunder and rain is just like so stressful sometimes.
Like, it's gonna cost me money. No.
Like there's so many times when I'm up at like 3 a.m. and I'm listening to a drip and being like, is that a drip that's like outside the window or inside the window?
Oh no. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's my anxiety.
Well, Tyler, it was so great like talking to you. You're a blast to chat with. You're Thanks, so cool, dude. and I love your work, and everybody, you need this Lonesome Hunters trade, and you especially need it before May, because we got more coming, and I'm so excited about that, dude. That's amazing.
You gotta get caught up before the next story arc starts.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth. I think it's $19.99 or something. It's worth every fucking penny, folks. You need to pick it up. It's a great great trade, and he's got pull quotes from Cullen Bunn and Jeff Lemire. So like that's pretty. If that doesn't sell it, like.
I've even had they didn't work out so good as pull quotes, but I got like quotes from Bendis even, which was like pretty amazing.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I think
I wouldn't be mad
Yeah.
if Bendis said I was doing a good job.
Yeah, no, I was pretty stoked about that.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Tyler, I wish you the best of luck, man. I can only hope, not to stress you out. I can only hope that Arc 2 it's too close to your heart. I feel like you know the ins and outs of this story and these characters. Like you could do anything and keep that same level of excitement and drama and I'm such a sucker for like found family, and I'm so excited for more like Lupe and Howard to like more of their monster hunting shenanigans. Like it's a great mix, and you are a great dude, and I'm so appreciative that you came on my show to nerd out, man. This was such a great night for me. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Blake. I really appreciate it. This has been fun.
Oh, I appreciate it. Well, unless you got anything else to say, I'm gonna play the music and we could call it a night.
Call it a night.
All right. Buzz babies. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Our watchers, thanks for hanging out. Love more, hate less, read comics. I'll be back tomorrow night with Dave Dwanch. So come back tomorrow night and learn about more great Dark Horse books. Woo!
Buzz!